Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Islamic Culture. And this is episode number 295. 295. I wish to thank the viewers for their kind remarks and comments, and we hope in future episodes to read some of their letters commenting on the episodes of Islamic Culture. We are proud that the subject of this episode is the month of Ramadan. Ramadan in English, in transliteration, we can write it like this: Ramadan. And those who know Arabic can tell that possibly Ramadan has something to do with the heat of the day, that in the old days, Ramadan happened to be in a month which was hot, Ramadan. Ramadan, in Arabic, of course, is written like this. Ramadan, which is Ramadan. Now, Ramadan, as we know, is one of 12 months, but calculated according to the lunar month, lunar year, lunar. It's very important. Whenever you are talking about Islamic culture, you talk about history and years and events according to the lunar calendar. Lunar is from luna, which means the moon, lunar. Qamari, in Arabic, qamari, nisbatan ila al-qamar. In Arabic, it is qamari. To distinguish it from what? To distinguish it from the solar month and the solar year, which solar means concerning the sun, belongs to the sun, solar. And in Arabic, it is shamsi. So, a year, which is solar, has 12 months. A lunar year also has 12 months. But, as we all know, the lunar year is shorter by 10 days or 11 than the solar year. Why? Because the month, according to the moon, is sometimes 29 and sometimes 30 days. 29 or 30 days. Not all months are the same length. It's either 29 or 30. The solar month is either 30 or 31 days. You can see the difference. The number of the months in the years, in the two types of year, are the same, except that because the month is shorter, the difference in 1 year could be about 11 days, between 10 and 11 days. And that is why Ramadan, which is by the lunar year, lunar month, sometimes could come in winter, it could come in the spring, it could come in the fall, or it could come in the summer. Every about 30 years, it rotates and begins about the same time. So, when we talk about dates, we talk about lunar dates and not about solar dates. But by now, we know exactly when each lunar date corresponds to what Gregorian date. Another name for this is in Arabic miladi or Gregorian. For the solar, it's also a Gregorian. This is the calendar, التقويم, the calendar which was devised by a pope called Gregorian. We refer to it most commonly as ميلادية, السنة الميلادية أو التقويم الميلادي. التقويم الميلادي. التقويم الميلادي. Every date, for example, in Saudi Arabia, we say as of such and such a day corresponding to in التاريخ الميلادي. التاريخ الميلادي is about the difference between, for example, we are in the year 1994 by the Gregorian calendar, which is 14 by the Hijra calendar. So there's about 6 centuries the difference between the Gregorian calendar and the lunar calendar, which is the Hijra calendar. The Hijra calendar was adopted by the Prophet after the death of the Prophet in the days of the second Caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar ibn al-Khattab. And it started with Umar. It started with the date or the year that the Prophet emigrated from Mecca to Medina. From Mecca to Medina, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Umar was the second caliph. The first caliph was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn al-Khattab. So, if we want to find a date corresponding to another date, for example, what year was the Prophet was born? We will find he was born roughly 570 AD, which is by the Gregorian calendar, which is the solar calendar, 570. When did the Prophet immigrate from Mecca to Medina? We will find it was about the year 622 of after Christ, according to the Gregorian calendar or the solar calendar, 622. And when was the Prophet, when did he die? 632, according to this calendar. So you say something happened during, according to the Hijra year, and it corresponds to, so in the other year, corresponds to such and such. Now Ramadan is a must. It's a wajib. It's a fard. Ramadan is a fard. Why is it a fard? Fard means a duty. It is a fard because it is mentioned first in the Quran itself, and secondly, because it is mentioned in the second source of the Muslim laws and Sharia, which is the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In both these sources, it's a duty on the Muslim to fast during the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan, as we said, could be 29 days or 30 days, and both males and females and anybody of age of age, puberty, al-bulugh. Al-bulugh is required to fast, and he is required to fast from just before sunrise until sunset. Now, where do we find in the Quran this order? We find it in the Surah Al-Baqarah. Al-Baqarah, for example, in the Quran, Al-Baqarah, and we find that the Prophet is told in the Quran, it's inspired to him, the Prophet is inspired to him that the fasting for the Muslims has been ordained, has been ordered, have been imposed by God on the Muslims, just like it was imposed on other people that came before the religion of Islam in the strict sense. Islam, in the general sense, started with Abraham, right from the beginning. But in the strict sense, it's what was inspired to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, in Al-Baqarah, Al-Baqarah, we said before, means literally the cow, Baqarah, because there is a mention of some story which involves a cow during the days of the Prophet Moses, alayhi salam, the Prophet Moses, alayhi salam, Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah, as we know, was revealed in Medina, and it is one of the longest, it is the longest chapter of the Quran. Of the 114 chapters of the Quran, the longest is Al-Baqarah, and that's why some people sometimes refer to Al-Baqarah as equivalent to 1/3 of the Quran, equivalent to 1/3 of the Quran. Here in a translation, in the verse 183, it says, O you who believe, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that ye may learn self-restraint. Self-restraint. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. So here is prescription. Proscription. Here is an order. Here is a duty on the Muslims in this 183, verse 183 of Al-Baqarah. Al-Baqarah is chapter 2, by the way, in the Quran, is chapter 2. Now it goes on. In the next verse in Al-Baqarah, we read in a translation, fasting for a fixed number of days. أياما معدودات, a fixed number of days. But if any of you is ill or on a journey, the prescribed number should be made up 4 days later. What is it saying here? The days are